Coming to you from the Lydia Media Studios in the heart of Lewiston, Auburn, it's Lydia's Lunch Bunch, LA's afternoon morning show. We're covering news and events in the greater LA area and talking to the people making a difference in our community. Feel free to share your comments, questions, or suggestions via email at podcast@lydiamediallc.com. Today's show is brought to you by Ruper's Beverage and Redemption. When it comes to beer, wine, and spirits, don't botch it. Squatch it at 4 locations in Lewiston, Auburn, and Oxford. Learn more at rupersbeverage.com, and remember, the party starts at Ruper's. It's Mark flying solo today as Sarah's off to her real job and Pam is on vacation, but I'm joined in studio by the arts agency manager for LA Arts, Gerald Walsh. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
So appreciate your time. You recently celebrated your 3rd anniversary at the helm of LA Arts.
I did, yeah. It's been an intense, exciting few years, I have to say. Like, I would describe it as being an upward trend, just crescendoing the whole time. Lots of new inquiries coming in on how to partner, what people are excited about the variety of arts events and cultural events that are happening in the city.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a number of things that we do inside our space, but there's lots that we do out in the community, either partnering with other organizations or even just hosting events like in the park, things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one of those events, obviously, is Art Walk LA.
Yeah, coming up on Friday.
Yeah, extremely popular. Before we get to all that, Gerald, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you came to be the arts agency manager for LA Arts?
Sure. Yeah, so I started off volunteering for LA Arts on some of the committees that they have, serving the exhibitions committee, helping organize exhibits, install the shows, connect with artists. And then I started working after exhibits on some of the Art Walk stuff. And then after doing that for a few years, they were kind of like, you're doing great. Why don't you join our board? Got a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes look on how complex the organization really is. And then essentially when the spot opened up, I didn't jump at it right away because I had a lot of other things going on. I was working at the Bates Art Museum as an art preparator and art handler. Installing the exhibits there, working as a private art installer and art handler, so doing odd jobs all around, really trying to pick up and as much work experience as possible and diversify my work portfolio. But I was able to kind of move things around and prioritize it as my sole focus, and I think it's a perfect match, actually. Yeah, it's exciting work.
You're an artist yourself.
I am, yeah. So I have a studio space in the mill over where Quaddy Shoes is. I've had that studio for maybe 12 years. And it's interesting because the space is kind of cheap and accessible. It's also a little edgy, being an old mill. But lots of storage space. I actually help artists out sometimes that we're working with, storing the work that's in process, things like that.
When did you know that art was going to play a major role in your life?
Oh, very early on. Yeah, I knew right away that that's what I wanted to do. I had no idea it was going to be arts administration, but it's a really exciting field. I mean, I get to have my hands in all different kinds of things throughout the whole city and work with people across the board, not just the artists, which I love the most, but people in the city, figures at other arts organizations. It's very fulfilling.
Do you recall the first time you were exposed to art and it really moved you?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I had a really supportive series of art teachers, not just like one art teacher that I could point to. And we had a good program in my school where we would make frequent visits to museums and things like that. So it's very hard to point to like a single experience. I feel like it's much more of like a constellation of images and feelings and sensations early on, including encouragement from my family, to pursue it as early as I can remember. As early as I could see. Like when I got glasses when I was 5, it was like, I'm drawing, this is what I want to do.
And it's so important to foster that creativity.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm an educator, too. I mean, I didn't mention that, but I teach classes at Central Maine Community College, and I have for several years. But I just feel like the arts, like whether or not you want to be an artist is kind of besides the point. The arts enrich our lives, and everyone can participate in art making processes, and I'm like really liberal in that interpretation. Like doodles, mark making on pages, even when you're writing, there are variations on forms of art. So I feel like the more that people can connect to the arts, the more meaning it provides for ourselves. And particularly in challenging times, it's all the more important.
Let's talk about LA Arts, what it is and what its purpose is in our community.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's a big question, too, though. LA Arts celebrated its 50th year last year. Started out as a partnership between the two libraries, so Auburn Public Library and the Lewiston Public Library. And speaking of education and the importance of the arts, it was much more focused on after-school programs, which we actually still hear people asking about, like, hey, do you ever think about bringing those back? And it's evolved over the years. It's had a number of different locations over the years. I think everybody feels that the current location on Lisbon Street is more centralized. We get a lot more people just kind of walking by, popping in, wanting to know what we're about. So new inquiries all the time. We're the nonprofit arts organization that serves both the cities. So LA stands for Lewiston Auburn. We have in-house exhibition series. There's a musical performance series. There's Art Walk, obviously, which we'll talk about. We support public arts, so I serve on the Public Art Committee in the city of Lewiston. And we have a number of pop-up events. So we just had Fiddler's Rendezvous last weekend in the park, which was hugely successful, organized by educator Greg Boardman, who's really known in the community. And then there's ad hoc partnerships, so we'll get requests to partner on things, and we try to prioritize that. Another one, actually, that I should mention is Beautiful Blackbird Festival is coming up, I think in September, and that's in partnership with a number of organizations, but it was started by Indigo Arts Alliance in Portland. So, yeah, pretty complex picture.
And you're a resident of Lewiston?
Yeah, I live in Lewiston with my family.
Is there a time when you can recall so much public art in the city of Lewiston? I drive around, and it's amazing to me. I've lived here since I was 14 years old. And driving around now is a much different experience than it was 10 years ago.
Oh, it's been like an explosion. Yeah, and it's very exciting. Public art, the city of Lewiston in particular, has really embraced the public art in the kind of multifaceted way that it can serve the community. It engages people. There's civic pride. There's a sense of self and growth, and generally it's good for businesses. So there's economic development. There's been lots of businesses that have been in support, I think even monetarily, of some of the murals that have happened. So yeah, I think the trajectory was really interesting. It was growing out of that big grant that we got from HUD. I think it was a $30 million grant 5 years ago. So we've been implementing not just public art, but a kind of like total city overhaul, looking at pedestrian and pathways, as well as like environmental cleanup, housing. Yeah, and public art was just a portion of that.
Whether you want a sit-down meal or a grab-and-go, Pat's Pizza in Auburn offers delicious sandwiches, pasta, salads, and pizza at family-friendly prices. Pat's Pizza, serving the LA area since 1985. Open daily from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at 85 Center Street in Auburn. Online at patsauburn.com.
So let's talk about Art Walk LA. It runs on the final Friday from May through September. Mm-hmm. So we're coming up on the final Friday in August here in a couple of days, the 29th. For someone who has not experienced Art Walk LA, how would you describe it?
I think it's a chance for the community to come together and celebrate the arts, and really it's a participatory experience. So what you want to bring to Art Walk, I think, is how I try to frame it with the community. We do sponsor Art Walk, but we don't really, LA Arts doesn't produce the whole thing. So we're encouraging community members, businesses, other organizations to get involved and to keep us informed so that we can amplify it and have it just go further in the community. Essentially, it's mostly downtown Lisbon Street, and then there's a handful of other businesses. Blue Jay sometimes gets involved. Main Mill hosts their Movement in the Museum series specifically during that time. There's Wicked Illustrations, which is just over on Canal Street. So there's a handful of organizations that are, quote unquote, off the map. But it's typically, from Munka has a lot of things down to Dufresne is where the kind of nexus of activity is.
And what types of art can people expect at Art Walk?
I think all forms. There's been a kind of growing sense of a marketplace happening on the street, and that's just been in response to what people have seen and wanted to see grow. So we have a registration process where, if you want to get involved, if you've never done it before, we try to support you as much as possible getting set up. We have a good relationship with the city where we essentially have a blanket permit, so you don't have to get an individual permit as a vendor. So a lot of crafts and handmade goods, artisan products happening, vendors along the street. There could be dozens of vendors. There's no like high art, low art distinction, I guess, is what I'm stumbling over right now. It's like you'll have really high end exhibits, and then you'll have street arts. In June, we even had like live painting. So people were painting micro murals. You mentioned public arts. It was with Serafim Solo and Jared Goulet, the color wizard. Both were painting side by side. Mm-hmm. There's musical performances. There's theater troupes have shown up and done like improv stuff. There's buskers. There's contracted musical performers. There's, I'm stumbling a little bit because there's almost like too much. So I'm not really sure how to start. Yeah,
sure.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I'm curious, like what you think and what you feel as Art Walk is going on and you're experiencing it.
Yeah, I see a real growing sense of people wanting to get more connected to the arts. So they really desire this experience of the diversity of experiences that I'm trying to refer to. They want to go out and see something that they didn't know that they were going to see. And I think that that's really important as a community to kind of celebrate that freshness. There's expectations that we set up. Like there's always an exhibit. There's always like refreshments in some of these places. There's always wine tasting at the vault. You know what I mean? There's certain core experiences that you can just anchor yourself in, but at the same time, it's mixed up with a kind of unexpected quality, which I think is really healthy.
And it runs from 5 to 8 p.m., correct?
5 to 8, yep.
Yeah. And the new space you referred to earlier at 168 Lisbon Street, were you there when the new space opened? I can't remember. I know it's recent.
Yeah, so
what year it was.
That kind of happened when I was transitioning from being a volunteer to being a board member. And then I was there from transitioning from a board member to being the manager. So I kind of really started to take on the role essentially like when we decided that we wanted the place. And so I worked really closely with the contractors and the building owners to get the place to be exactly what we wanted it to be, which was a process. And we were delayed, I think, about 6 months just due to the complexity of all the things that we were trying to set up. I mean, the lighting itself is, museum or gallery standards. We had Bill Lowe from the Bates Art Museum, who is really the professional advisor on that. But we had to overhaul the whole place, like put in a kitchen, make it ADA accessible, redo the floors, put in sound-resistant tiles, build out the bathrooms in the back. Like it was a soup to nuts kind of overhaul. Knock down walls, put up new ones, plywood backing walls so that you could hang heavy art. It was really like we were trying to be as comprehensive as possible. And where we left off, essentially, and it had to do both with timing and with budget, was the performance stage in the back. So it's a mixed use space where you walk in, the office is on the left, but it's connected in a very open way to the gallery. Big open space, kind of long. In the back, probably quarter of the space is the performance area. So just this year in January, we got a grant to build the stage, and we've been working on setting up the AV equipment. So just in the last couple months, I installed a drop-down projector so we can do screenings. There's a projector mounted on the ceiling. We've got really nice speakers for our performance series mounted on the ceiling. The next stage, I think, and we have to go after a grant again, is professional lighting, so we can do microcontroller stuff. So yeah, performance is definitely an area where we're investing more energy into. But just this year, I would say we've had a pretty successful launch with this new stage for the music series.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the process of seeing it all come together and being part of it?
Oh, immensely. Yeah. And I learned that I can do something like that. Like I had no idea how much relational forming, how relationship building from the ground up with the landlords was really important during that process. So, we wanted it to go smoothly. We have a great relationship with the landlords currently. And really because we want to be there for the long term. They want us there. they see it's good for the city, and just to comment on that, like the building that we're in is a mixed-use building. So there's offices, there's residential, there's us on the ground floor, but there's also a language school right next to us. I've heard about, I don't want to spill the beans on that, but yeah, I mean, there's things in development that I probably shouldn't talk about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. If you ever want to break some news, just
Yeah. I'd have to confer with people first to see if it's okay timing or not.
Yeah.
But
I was really excited to learn that you were welcoming musicians and bands into the space. It is a wonderful gallery space. Mm-hmm. But when I heard that, I was like, it's a game changer. Because I think in the old space, you had the downstage.
Which is what it was called, yeah. And we still technically call it the downstage, like even though there's no downstairs anymore. So the music series is called the downstage.
Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit and talk about some performances you have coming up?
Sure, yeah. So the best way for me to do that is to look at our internal calendar. September is really booked. We've got Phantom Phase, Euphemia, and Greenbrier coming up on September 13th. The following week after that is actually not a performance-specific thing, but maybe I can put in a plug for the Masquerade Ball after we talk about this. Millions of Energy, Midwestern Medicine, and a to-be-announced band is happening in October 4th. So I'm actually looking at the calendar. My head is kind of dizzying at the moment. There are some tentatives on here that I wouldn't put a plug in until it gets confirmed.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, what I would say about the musical series is that it really spans the whole spectrum. So we've had like big punk shows in there where we have a full house, 100 or more people. We've also had like grassroots, like fiddling. We've had acoustic series. We've had experimental electronica stuff. Like, it's really pretty diverse. And the best point person is Elijah True, who you mentioned that you know.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on our board, and he's a musician himself. So, I mean, I just have to be frank that, like, it's not my area of expertise. And so that's why we have the committees that we do. We have a point person who, helps curate the space and connect with the musicians. And my end of the musical stuff is more like, making sure that the space is prepped, everybody's communicating with each other. I handle the contracts, things like that, the insurance, liability insurance, things like that. So some of the more, those are the parts that I don't love about my job, but it turns out that I'm actually pretty good at it. So, I just, again, amplify and assist and help with promo, obviously.
So let's talk about the Masquerade Ball that you alluded to earlier. That is coming up on September 20th.
Yeah, so the Masquerade Ball, and again, this is almost a little bit like where I'm not the best person to be talking about it, but I felt like I should put in a plug. Masquerade Ball was organized at the Agora Grand and ran for a few years. And, again, like the feeling in the community is that people really want it back. And so the organizers were like, well, what if we did it at LA Arts and we used it kind of as an opportunity to kind of roll it into like sponsorship or fundraising opportunities. And so, it's a bit of an evolving process, but it's going to be at LA Arts on September 20th. Is that what I said?
Yep.
There's going to be like an auction of artwork, but, it's just a blast. I went there with my wife a few years ago, got all decked out in, kind of, I don't know, like Western skeleton costumes, like, and people were kind of like, what movie are you from? And we were like, we just made this up. It's not from anything specifically. But, just a really great time to connect with like, kind of especially like your quirky artist friends that want to make it work for themselves.
Sure.
I would just invite people to again, like have fun, be quirky, make the night your own, come and check out the art. There's going to be Clarion Bolduc's show Low Tide on display, which makes me a little bit nervous because the art is so nice, and like having a ton of people in the space is definitely one of the more challenging parts of my job, making sure that the mixed use space concept actually works. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great night, really fun. Music, ? I don't know. I wish Sherry was sitting here talking, actually, not me. Somebody knows more about that event than I do.
Yeah, no worries. But if they'd like more information, they can go to the website, laarts.org.
Yeah, it's not on the website yet.
Okay.
Probably right now the best place would be our social media page.
Okay.
Facebook is up there. I'm going to make one on Instagram by the end of the week, but I'm a little bit preoccupied with Art Walk right now. But yeah, we'll have a landing page up on the website hopefully pretty soon.
You are on the Public Art Committee. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the most recent piece that was, I believe it was featured in the Sun Journal at Lionel Potvin Park?
Yeah, so this artist, Serafim Isolo, he's an Angolan artist that recently moved to Lewiston, and he's just phenomenal. We hosted an exhibit of his, really kind of co-produced the exhibit, helped him source materials for his sculptural paintings last February, so not this past one, but the last year. And he grew up as a street artist, so he was doing graffiti in Angola and, kind of expanded his skill set. So he does very traditional paintings on canvases, but he also does these mixed media sculptural paintings that I mentioned, and he's a phenomenal public artist, like a muralist. So we worked with him on this project in partnership with the City of Lewiston, the Public Art Committee, and Public Works. And essentially, it was, I don't know if it's like a utility shed or something, that it houses some electrical equipment or something, but pretty sizable, shed that's down in the park. Beautiful park. I take my kids down there all the time. It's right by Bernard Lone Peace Bridge when you're heading over into Auburn, kind of across the street from the Franco Center. But the shed itself gets graffitied regularly, and that's kind of how the idea came to the committee. Megan Parks, approached us and was like, yeah, there's some of these places around town. We'd love to beautify them. Can you help us out? And so I connected her with this artist. He and I worked together to work on a mock-up. Like, I did the site surveying, and then he did a 2-scale representation of what it would look like. Mm-hmm. And then we actually were able to use the remaining funds from that big grant that I was talking about. Yeah. So that 5-year grant, it's a 25-year plan, but the grant that we got was for the first 5 years. And so this funding was from the remaining balance that was left, that was allocated specifically for public art. He wanted to do something that was kind of bright and celebratory, signaled youth, vitality. There's references to children at play in the imagery, but also the kind of diversity of nature and the population. So it's a really kind of deeply considered context-specific mural, which I think is really unique. And I think it's important to mention that it's across the street from the new development that's happening down there, which was also part of the plan, to signal the ways in which the arts overlap with all these other initiatives that are happening in the city. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have been a part of the process. Again, not to really like implement it, but to administer and help it happen smoothly, make sure that everybody's communicating and coordinating with each other. I'm actually, after this meeting, going to make another post about it on social media because the images are just incredible. If you haven't had a chance to go check it out yourself, I think it certainly adds a lot of meaning to the place and to the city.
For sure. We have had Melanie Terrian on this show before.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Wicked illustration.
Yeah, well, and she's really critical. I mean, I don't know if there's been enough lip service paid to thank her for really being one of the people that spearheaded the importance of public art by initiating projects. I mean, she's the one that's behind the Crosswalk series. She was the one who worked with Public Works before there was a public art committee to do the first batches of the electrical boxes. And then when the public art committee was formed, we went back to Melanie and said, well, you're the expert. Do you want to do not just a handful of them, but pretty much all of them in the city? And so I think at this point, there's been 40-something boxes painted. So yeah, she's been really critical and a huge advocate. I mean, she speaks better to it almost than I do. I wish that she was on the show here, which, you did leave open to a possibility, but I didn't know who to bring along. But yeah, she's great.
I mean, we can do this again sometime too. It's not.
Yeah, no, I do think another show specifically on public art is you could talk about it for hours.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
How can folks support LA art?
I mean, showing up, I think, is the lowest bar. Any event, you don't have to go to all of them, but come to one of the musical performances, come to the opening receptions, come to one art walk or all, find out more about public art, find out how you can get involved. You know what I mean? Be a volunteer, which is really something that we have to improve on. The interest is there, but for the last 3 years, I was the only employee. We have a very active board and there's committees, but I was the only one that was actually on the books. And then in January, we hired the second staff member, Courtney Reed Marsh, and together we share a lot of the responsibility of the administrative, tasks. But there's almost just like too much to do. Every time you do something, you're actually creating more work for yourself to do because you're sparking that interest, which is so integral to our mission. Like we want to engage and inspire a vibrant arts community, so anything we do when we're kind of lighting people up, what we're really working on now is how to have a kind of solid administrative structure so that when you reach out, you're not just doing a one-off volunteer, which is the easiest thing to do. If we have an event, sure, help out, but what I really need to figure out is sustained engagement, so you can keep coming back and I have things for you to do, ways that you can get involved. But you can also just like throw us $50. Like lots of people do that. Yeah. There's corporate interest too. I mean, we have sponsorships across the whole board, in addition to getting grants and receiving funding from the city. But yeah, I mean, I think it really just kind of starts with the interest in having a conversation, or in many ways that happens is just by showing up and talking to somebody directly. Yeah.
What types of opportunities are available to people who are interested in volunteering?
I'm really trying to work on that. Yeah. I don't have a clear answer because we don't have the administrative structure. Really, it's at the point where my schedule is so booked that a lot of the things that I've been holding, like installing the exhibits, or even just the humdrum stuff when you install exhibits, like patch walls, do a fresh coat of paint. That's pretty much how I started off. So that's what we're eyeing to kind of reactivate. But I don't have the structure in place to really say, here's something that you can do. Right now, a lot of that stuff, when I am divesting myself of it and I'm at the point where I can kind of delegate it to somebody else, it tends to fall on our interns or our work study students. And sometimes they can also help us engage like more community members. I know for sure, even with like musical performances, like we've got people who help with the door, we've got people that help with ticketing, we've got some volunteers that run the bar, but a lot of that, there are other point contacts, and it's contingent on them being able to like train that person. I think I'd like to just hear what people want to do. You know what I mean? Sure. Like if you say, hey, I'm interested in, this specifically, then we might be able to work something out.
Is there anything else about LA Arts that you would like our listeners to know? I do have a couple more questions for you that are about you specifically. So I just would like to give you this opportunity.
I mean, I do want to put more specifically a plug in for the next exhibit that we have. So Clara Yim Bolduc, Low Tide, opens on Friday during Art Walk from 5 to 8. This is a local artist. I think she went to Bates. Lives in the studio just above us, kind of across the hall from Ellard Studios, which is also hosting fantastic events for Art Walk. So, very local, very engaged artist, kind of reframing how she, and by extension, we may view or experience the main landscape, which is like such a common subject matter for people to paint. I think that the paintings, they're large. They very much engage your body. So when you're standing in front of them, I have a really visceral bodily experience. It's like it's embodied work. It requires a genuine in the moment response, which I think is really, really great. It's not just a representation of a landscape is what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite medium to work with?
That's super tricky. I'm very mixed media, so I work with everything. The last work that I was really seriously making, and I consider LA Arts to be my work, really. It's like community practice, was drywall. So I made these kind of low relief sculptural paintings out of drywall that I hammered and removed one half of the surface, and it's got this kind of pockmarked textural quality that I love. So I tend to really appreciate tactile, physical, some kind of engagement. Like I have protested for a long time the idea that art has to be off limits. So I make not necessarily like interactive work. Like it's not. I did do electronics for a little while, but I like work that encourages you to break down that barrier and just like touch it. And if it breaks, like that's actually kind of great because it requires me to like love it again, to pay attention to it again. And so my work is in this constant cycle of repair and disrepair, alive and being almost dead. And it started off for me as a kind of like almost like Frankenstein desire. So I have this like mad scientist, fantasy or archetype that I'm tapping into. I like for people to retain that childlike quality of the impulse to like touch it. And just like, yeah, go for it. Like, so I had in my thesis show, actually, when I was a graduate student, I had work that was directly on the ground. And all my advisors were like, you really got to set up some kind of, put it on a pedestal or set up some system where people understand that there's boundaries around this thing. And I was like, it's fine. And of course, like someone stepped on it and broke it and they were panicking. And I was just like, that's great, man. I was like, because now I have to pay attention to it again. And it's not just like something that I made and it exists outside of myself. Somehow I'm always looking for what is that relationship that I retain to this thing, not just like make it and put it out there and let it live its own life. I mean, maybe they're my children and I have to let them go at some point, but I don't ever really let them go. Yeah.
That is wonderful. I've never heard that philosophy before. Do you have a favorite piece of art that you've created?
I'm still really attached. I made these series, I called them Scouts, and they're like a fisheye lens, like a door viewer that's embedded in like a ball, and it has these kind of animated wings that are, they're mobile, they move around. And really, it's like a dual purpose. It's like, yes, it's like basically like an art toy. But what I was really interested in was using the object, handing it to somebody, watching them kind of get inspired by the ability to like touch this thing, interact with it, project their fantasies onto it, and have that conversation. So what I was really interested in was like cracking someone open into like how they were thinking and feeling about this prompt that I made. But really my goal was just like, I just wanted to be talking about dreams and fantasy and like how far we can go in our imaginations. The object itself was just sort of like a tool to have that conversation. So those objects, I think, were really successful in that regard. They failed in a sense when people just got stuck on the thing that it was, or like, why don't I just mass market these and make a bunch of them? I'm like, that's not really the point. Like, the point is that I want to talk to somebody, engage with somebody. Yeah.
Gerald, what are you most proud of in your 3 years at LA Arts?
I mean, there's shows specifically that we've worked with artists, like this Serafimi Solo Life on Scrap show in February was particularly meaningful. The resurgence or emergence of public art in our lives, but really it's more like the abstract quality, like the feeling of gratitude and like appreciation that people are mirroring back to me when they see how the arts are impacting their lives. So it's more abstract. It's how all those things add up. But there's definitely very specific instances where I was able to pause and be like, man, that was done really well. Yeah. The flip side of that is like it's a constant hustle. So I'm like always chasing, always thinking like the next 6 chess moves ahead kind of a thing. And so it's actually really hard to slow down and pause and have those genuine moments of appreciation, but they're so important. Like if you appreciate and value the arts, share that with everyone you know. You know what I mean? Because it catches on like wildfire. And that's exactly what our mission is to have people really impacted in a positive way.
Next year marks 30 years of Uncle Andy's Digest. What started as a beloved print publication has grown into Lydia Media, a full-service marketing partner helping local businesses thrive. From LA Metro Magazine and the Lydia's Lunch Bunch podcast to social media management, website design, and advertising across all platforms, we've got your marketing needs covered. If you're a business making a difference in our community, let's connect. Lydia Media is here to tell your story and help you grow. Lydia Media, in business, for business. Learn more at lydiamediallc.com.
Gerald, we like to close out the show with a segment called 3 Random Questions.
Oh, shoot.
Where I will ask you questions that have nothing to do with art.
Oh, wow.
It's all about you.
Wow.
Are you up for it?
Sure.
All right. They're fun.
Yeah, it's chaos.
It is. That's how we like it here.
Yeah. Chaos is one of my mediums.
I love it. Gerald, what did you learn about yourself during COVID?
Oh, that I really needed to slow down. I mean, I'm learning that more than ever. Like, I'm probably working 2 or 3 times as hard after COVID. But during COVID, I spent so much time with my daughter. Like, we were doing home projects. Like, tons of people were baking bread. It was like, I don't need to drive around. I don't need to be ping-ponging all over the place. Like, I can just be here right now. And I'm like trying to learn that lesson again, like every day. So the lesson that I learned, foremost is that like I really need to slow down. However, like the way that I can speed after, like, race after things is kind of like my gift or my quality. So I'm just trying to figure how to balance that out.
That was such a challenging time, and I think a lot of people rediscovered their family.
Yeah,
in that time.
I mean,
right?
it was the best time. Like, I was doing homeschooling like everybody else, or distance learning, whatever you want to call it. You know, it was the best time with my parents. Like, when I went home for the holidays, we played games. You know, we sat around. We weren't distracted. We were present with each other because I think we valued it in a way that it's easy to forget, you know, when you're caught up in just the hustle.
Yes, everyday life,
Yeah.
sure. Favorite childhood toy?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I loved the Gremlin toys. I think they actually pulled them from the market because they were so terrifying. They looked exactly like the Gremlins from the movie.
They did.
I loved mine so much, and this is connected to that Frankenstein thing, that when its arms fell off, because I played with it so much, my dad screw bolted them on. So the Gremlin had these like super archaic looking, you know, mechanical bolts to like bring this thing back to life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of that started for me. I was just like, oh, thanks, Dad. It's a little bit different than I want it to be, but like it was important to reactivate it and keep it in my life. So yeah, definitely the Gremlins toy.
Keeping your professional skills aside, what could you teach someone to do today with 100% certainty?
How to bake bread, but that is a professional skill. I'm still going to go with bread because before my career as an arts administrator or as an artist, I baked bread and bagels at Forage Market, managed the sourdough bagel. And there's a lot of like myth around like what makes good bread. And I feel like if you gave me a day, you know what I mean? Was there a limit on how long I had to teach somebody? No. Yeah, so I could give you the I could give anybody the basics on what makes a really solid loaf of bread or a bagel or whatever, and anyone can do it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't have to do with the water or whatever. It's about the relationship that you're forming with the microbiome, you know, if you want to do like sourdough bread. But even if you wanted to do, you know, conventional yeast bread or whatever, there's a certain set of parameters that if you adhere to and you pay attention to where one of those may have gone awry, you can always swing it back. So anybody can make the best bread in the world if they just paid attention to some basics.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really enjoyable.
Feel free to come back anytime, bring some guests with you, and we will do our best to spread the good word of LA Arts throughout this community.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to bring a whole posse with me.
All right.
A whole group of advocates.
Here's Gerald Walsh, Arts Agency Manager for LA Arts. You can find them online at laarts.org. And don't forget, folks, Art Walk LA coming up on Friday, August 29th from 5 to 8 p.m. And be sure to check out their Facebook page as well. Thanks to Ruper's Beverage and Redemption for sponsoring today's episode. And if you would like to be part of the Lydia's Lunch Bunch advertising family, reach out to Pam Ashby via email at pam@lydiamediallc.com.
Have a great day, and remember, don't bite your cat. And I will say I have bitten my cat.